Hello, welcome to another video with me. My name is Melissa, and in today's video we are going to be talking about style muses. Now, the history of what a muse is, I'm not going to delve too deep into that, but it dates way back to Greek mythology, and they are a source of inspiration for the different sectors of art. But the idea of a style muse is prevalently used today in the fashion world and can be used in many different ways. The first time I ever heard of using a muse was when I was in college. I majored in fashion design, for those of you who don't know, and having a muse to design for was the backbone of my fashion education. Having a muse was super important because it was like the highest point of inspiration of who you are designing for. Not to be confused with who your target customer is. Your target customer includes like the demographic, how much money they make, if they can actually afford the clothes that you are designing. The muse is who your clothes kind of revolve around in terms of you design their entire closet. Your muse is the idea of a person. Now, when it comes to having your own style muse, and not in a case of you being a designer, the goal of having a style muse is not to become this person, but to emulate parts of them. And it is highly encouraged to have a multitude of muses to the point where it's unrecognizable exactly who you're taking inspiration from, because then it becomes uniquely your own. So we're going to be talking about several different places that you can get a style muse from, and as I talk about each place you can get a muse from, I'll talk about how you can implement their style into your own. One of the greatest places to get a style muse is your everyday life, your real life people that you encounter. So in some cases it could be your parents. It could be the cool aunt that lives in Paris and has no kids and is just living a carefree life. It could be your art teacher who wear something super eclectic and experimental every day. It could be your classmates, your peers, your friends. It could be literally anyone that you encounter on a day-to-day basis. So for me, one of my earliest real-life muses was my mom, specifically in the 90s. There was just something about what my mom wore that really took a toll on me in terms of my style, and it's still something that I subconsciously emulate on a day-to-day basis. Take it into my own though, because I prefer a darker aesthetic than how my mom dressed, but in many ways there are some cases where I'll be wearing something and it gives off the vibe that my mom did. Like when I wear the glasses that I wear, I look a little bit more like my mom. She's not gonna let me show any photos of her. My mom's very camera shy. However, I will talk about some 90s muses that remind me of my mom's style from that time. One of them is Winona Ryder. Now, the main reason why Winona reminds me of my mom is they're actually the same Kibbe body type, and the way Winona looked in the 90s really reminded me of my mom. Like my mom even had like that short haircut that Winona Ryder's known for. And it's not even like all of her movies that she's in, but it's like mainly her much more casual outfits where she's wearing a tank top and jeans or a super long floral maxi skirt. Like there is something very branded about the 90s style where it's effortless, and there is the prints and patterns, and there's a bit of touch of grunge in there that you look at it and you know it's the 90s. Another obvious place to get a style muse from is the movies. Now, it could be different for everybody, but really think about the movies that have had a special impact on you, or you look at a character in the movie and there's something that you're just extremely enamored by. And this is where I'm going to talk about how representation really matters. The first time I ever saw a main character that was Asian in mainstream media was Lucy Liu in Charlie's Angels. Now that movie does not age well in terms of like there is some sexist things that they say in the movie or things that are a little cringy. But looking back at how Lucy Liu looked in terms of style, the way she carried herself, a lot of the promotional photos, like she is badass, and she is still a muse that I tried to emulate in terms of style. Also, I in many ways found her inspirational in terms of martial arts. So for those of you who don't know, I am a black belt in Hapkido. She is not the entire reason why I joined martial arts, but when you're 5 years old and you see your first Style Muse on like the TV screen and she's like kicking butt and she's like in these super cool spy outfits that are still like 90s coded, it takes a toll on you in a good way. And if you really think about like what movie that reminds you of your childhood that had like really good style, like really inspirational outfits that you can emulate. And it's not that I try to look like Lucy Liu from Charlie's Angels on a daily basis, but there are some cases where I'll see something that is very sleekly designed, 90s spy look to it that I'll be really drawn to. And she does wear a lot of black. Another place that you possibly already have a style muse from, or finding a style muse, is on television or your favorite TV shows. There are so many great style inspirations that you can get from TV shows that you grow up with, or even the styling that is found today. My first style muses on television was Morticia Addams on essentially the original Addams Family. Even though technically the Addams Family original source material was a comic, the first live action iteration was the 1960s TV show. And I remember being so enamored by Carolyn Jones's Morticia Addams for several reasons. I speculate that this Morticia Addams was the reason why I became so drawn to a dark aesthetic early on. But the reason why I love Morticia Addams as like a very high level muse for me is she is also a source of inspiration of like a soft feminine energy that doesn't demonize being feminine, or there's like nothing wrong with being soft spoken, and you can still be into dark and spooky things. And that is the embodiment of Morticia Addams. Speaking of fictional style muses, it doesn't always have to be like a live action person, but it can also be something animated, quite literally fictional. In many cases, I have taken style inspiration from different manga, anime, comics, but I want to mainly focus on Nana Osaki. She is a great example of a style muse that you can actually quite literally take their outfit formulas and translate it into your own. So when it comes to Nana Osaki, she had a couple of signature things to her that is very recognizable, and Ayazawa, creator of Nana, really takes into account. So some of those signature things to Nana Osaki is red plaid, her makeup look, leopard print, and of course Vivienne Westwood. So a very obvious example of if Nana is one of your style muses is actually taking these elements and implementing it to your own. I have always loved leopard print, so it's not that hard to find leopard print in my closet, but with Nana being a style inspiration, I also look to Vivienne Westwood jewelry or purses, looking more into red plaid skirts. And even if you don't like take their outfit like exact verbatim, just taking some elements of it can still be recognizable and is a great way to take inspiration from them. Because again, you're not trying to copy your style muse, but take inspiration from them. Another great place to get inspiration for a style muse is video games. I have always loved the style and fashion that you can find in video games. They're a little bit on the more outworldly side and a little unattainable, but if you minimize some of those elements and only take bits and pieces from their style, it can read as something that's not cosplay and as something as an everyday wear. I'm not stopping you from wearing cosplay on a day-to-day basis. I mean, good for you. I think that's awesome. But if you want something that's a little bit more everyday wear, you can still take elements from it. So for example, Tifa Lockhart from Final Fantasy and Ada Wong from Resident Evil. One of the key elements that I really envision when it comes to them are the harnesses that are implemented into their outfits. So if you want an outfit that reads as very Tifa Lockhart, you can wear your harness over a white tank top and a black skirt, or a black tank top and a long black skirt. And with that harness and maybe like a hint of red Doc Martens, and there'll be something about your outfit that reads as a casual Tifa Lockhart. When it comes to Ada Wong, you can take a long knitted dress and put a harness over it, and you'll kind of look like a modern day iteration of this Resident Evil character. Well, I guess she is modern day, but everyday version, if you will. You can do that with pretty much any video game character. Like if you like Yuna from Final Fantasy and you don't feel comfortable wearing her entire outfit on a day-to-day basis, you can take colors from her color palettes, the blues, the pinks. I think even her haircut is actually a pretty approachable haircut. You can take elements from her and it will still be like Yuna essence. Now, you don't always have to get your style muses from mainstream media. You can quite literally look within, and I actually highly recommend it, taking inspiration from your astrology placements. Highly recommend looking more so into your rising, Venus, moon sign, or if there is a repeating sign in your birth chart, really looking into them. Now, what a lot of people ask me is, well, I am a this and this, but how do I dress like this? And one of the more obvious approaches is looking to everyday people that actually you share those placements with, and bonus points if you share the rising and Venus as them. Now, I don't have that luxury, but I still take inspiration from my rising twins. I actually did a video on it, I'll link it here, where I dress up as my different rising twins and see which of the rising twins I have, who do I share my wardrobe more similarly to. My rising twin that I mainly want to talk about is Kristen Ritter. When it comes to Kristen Ritter, whenever I go shopping, I really do think about her in mind, and my hairstyle is very much inspired by her. I have even bought a leopard coat because it looks exactly like the one she has. And I love the contrast of her dark hair and red lipstick, and that's something that I even do on a daily basis. And another, so funny, like both of them are Pisces rising, but Betty Page, who is actually known for the above the brow bangs, is also Pisces rising. Now, majority of her photos are in lingerie. It works out though, because I almost became a lingerie designer when I was in the fashion industry. But I do take a lot of inspiration from retro styles, the 1950s and 60s. So it's kind of nice to also have a style muse like Betty Page, who is a Pisces rising, and I have the hairstyle to emulate them. So like I mentioned, you can take inspiration from some celebrities that you share a rising and Venus with. I don't have an exact celebrity twin that is the same rising and Venus as me. However, I can look at it on a separate level and look at inspiration from a Pisces rising twin and my Aries Venus twin. And my favorite Aries Venus twin that I emulate ever since I was in high school is Lily Allen. Now, I know she's a bit of a wild card and she has a very wild history. I remember being extremely inspired by her in high school when she would wear literally prom dresses and combat boots. And I remember thinking, I want to be that, but I never had the courage to do so. And it's just kind of comforting that even at almost 30, I still want to emulate the Lily Allen feeling, where she is bold, experimental, she has these feminine elements that are fun, and also bangs queen. She looks amazing in bangs, and I think she's sporting blunt bangs as we speak. I of course have to talk about the Kibbe body type and how you can have a style muse of someone who has the same Kibbe body type as you. You don't have to do this, because just because you share a Kibbe body type with someone doesn't mean you necessarily are inspired by that style. And actually that is a common comment I see a lot, where someone will say, I know who my Kibbe body type twins are, but I don't really like their style. What I recommend is when you look at your Kibbe body type twins, you don't have to really emulate their style, but mainly look at the garments and silhouettes that look good on them, that make them glow or have a certain effect on them, and take that and translate that into your own style. So for example, Pamela Anderson. I don't know about you, but I look nothing like Pamela Anderson, but in many different ways, I actually really like her style. Emulate that 90s look that I really talk a lot about and take a lot of inspiration from. And even Pamela Anderson even said that she didn't have a stylist in the 90s and she kind of threw on what she had. I really admire her as a fellow soft natural muse, because when it comes to being a soft naturals are often associated with they look best in what looks good on Jennifer Lopez, where it's like flowy and 1970s, but not everyone who's a soft natural wants to dress 1970s. And that's why I like Pamela Anderson. Like, I kind of like that bombshell 90s look that she gives off, even though I'm not trying to look like her. Some of the silhouettes that I like is I love the corset details that she wears. I love how a baby doll tee and a mini skirt look on her, and some boots. Also, something as simple as a cardigan over the broadness of her shoulders. Like, I like that she shows a different version of a soft natural. And I know she has done like some like work on her body, but when it comes to soft natural, what I'm mainly focusing on that I can like really resonate with in terms of Pamela Anderson is she has broad shoulders and then it tapers down to her waist, and that's one of the key elements of being a soft natural. And she has like an ever so slight hourglass curve, and she accommodates for that in some of the details that I just mentioned. Now, when it comes to having a muse, I recommend having a muse of all sorts of variety. However, I do think it is important to narrow it down just a little bit, just so you are not overwhelmed by the too many choices you have. It really comes to focusing on your signature style. It helps to narrow it down. But when you do narrow it down, I highly recommend having a mix of modern day muses and retro muses. In addition to Betty Page being one of my favorite retro muses, another favorite retro muse of mine that I probably emulate more so on a daily basis, especially as someone who loves dressing in like a corporate goth wear, is Katharine Hepburn. I love that she is like the queen of suits, and she wore suits even when it was demonized for women to even wear menswear. And even though I don't like wear a full-on suit like she does, I love finding jumpsuits or wide-legged pants that make me feel like Katharine Hepburn. I once had this jumpsuit. It shrunk, but I remember loving it so much that I would wear it like once a week because I felt like Katharine Hepburn, and that's what it's like having a style muse and accomplishing it feels. But I know when it comes to having a retro muse, some people are reluctant to having one. Like, whenever people are looking into the Kibbe body type, they kind of get frustrated that most of their Kibbe like twins are like of old Hollywood films, and they're like, I don't want to dress like I'm from the 1950s, even though I do. I like the 1950s, 1960s, even though that's not for everybody. There are different ways to take these retro styles and translate it into a modern day style. So one of the greatest examples is Dita Von Teese. Now, she definitely does take it in a more literal route. Like, when you look at her, you can definitely get that retro vibe that she's trying to give off. But something to keep in mind about Dita Von Teese is that even though a good majority of her wardrobe is retro and she does go vintage shopping, she has mentioned many times in her interviews that a lot of her clothes are actually new and modern and are from modern day designers, but she styles it in a way that is meant to be retro. Her book, which is called Your Beauty Mark, is actually one of my biggest inspirations when it comes to signature styles, because it made me realize, like, for a long time I wanted to dress and look like Dita Von Teese. Like, I would wear hair rollers every night so that I can have the voluminous retro styled hair, and it didn't always like work out for me, and it wasn't always practical. And she mentioned in her book that the point of her book is not so that you can emulate Dita Von Teese's look, but to realize what is unique to you and how to find your own signature style, which is something I constantly talk about. Now, quickly, I want to talk about the more obvious, where there's no route and you just look at them and you're like, I just like how they look and I want to look like that. And most of the time, that's what happens when your style muse is just a modern day celebrity. Like, there's no rhyme or reason. I just like how they dress. Are the Olsen twins, specifically now. So I'm a huge fan of their brand, The Row. I know it's a little controversial. Some people are not a fan of The Row because it's just simple designs that are overpriced in some ways. As a former fashion designer, I appreciate The Row because they take traditional styles and silhouettes, but they add what we call like designer details, where there's something different about it that you don't really see in fast fashion pieces. And I mean, I'm not saying it completely justifies the thousands of dollars. I think a lot of the price does come from the fact that they are being designed by the Olsen twins and it is a brand, the Row, but there are unique design details that I like about it. And you see this style in the Olsen twins. And I love how both Mary-Kate and Ashley wear a dark aesthetic, and in some ways you can take inspiration from them if you're into like a corporate goth style or a dark aesthetic with tailored elements like tailored trousers or blazers. They are a great inspiration of how to play with shape, silhouette, and texture. And that brings me to my final and probably most important point is how do you take all of these muses and actually fully emulate it into your style? So the most obvious, like I mentioned in some of these, like with Nana Osaki, is literally just copying their outfit, like actually finding the patterns and the plaids and the colors that these characters or celebrities wear and actually implementing it into your own. Now, there are some cases where, like, if your Style Muses is also the Olsen twins and you can't drop $3,000 on a t-shirt, what's wrong with you? You can always find a dupe. I know that's like super obvious, but you know, just throwing it out there. So for example, there is this super slouchy bag that one of the Olsen twins is wearing, and most likely it is the Row, their brand of course, and it matches their style. It's very relaxed, it matches their oversized tailored look, and there's something kind of luxurious about it, and there's something about the Olsen twins that scream quiet luxury. Etsy is one of the great places to find dupes. I actually did find a dupe of that exact bag and I got it. And you don't always have to find like those exact dupes. Sometimes you just have to like look at like what is it about their style or that piece on them that you like, and you can put those keywords into Mercari. So if it's the fact that it's a relaxed black leather bag, you can go on Mercari or Depop or eBay and type in those keywords, and it may take a while, but as you scroll through, you may find something that gives off that same essence. And again, you don't have to find that dupe. You can if you want to, but you don't have to find that exact dupe to copy that exact outfit. But what you're looking for is to emulate that aura and essence that they give off and translate it into your own. For example, if you can't find the exact leopard coat that Kristen Ritter is wearing, I did, by the way, on Depop, but let's say you can't, you can always translate it by finding a different leopard print coat and still have it give off that Kristen Ritter look. Or you can wear a leopard print cardigan and in a way it's Kristen Ritter coated. If you watched this entire video, thank you so much. I hope you have a great week, and until next time, bye.